Hello, everybody, and welcome to Smells Like Teen Horror. And you're noticing right away because it's a video, we have two guests. First, let's get into the little brother I never had nor wanted, Dillon Tillmen. How's it going, Dillon?
Well, feels good to finally be back. So yeah, it's going good. Yeah, I've known this Eric guy far too long. To the point now we're probably officially either we're family. So
Pretty much, man. And
yeah.
then one of the up and coming filmmakers that I really love watching his work and a great YouTube channel. He also has a brand new book all about cooking rats. It is about to be added to the Bob Evans menu. Killjoy Jake. How's it going, Jake?
Oh, it's going good, man. You know, the cookbook success has really been something phenomenal these last couple of weeks. So I appreciate you talking about that.
Yeah, that was the main thing I wanted to have you on about because Bob Evans is adding some of your recipes, man. What was that like?
You know, it was weird to try ratatouille with real rat in it, but it's good. You know, it's if you're into that kind of thing, it's good. No, I appreciate you for having me on, Eric. It means a lot.
Oh, because again, like I was saying before we started, you are one of my favorite YouTubers. Well, everyone in the collective, I started watching you. Jake is part of this group that has this really cool live streams. I started watching them right when Scream 5 came out. It was like, wait, these guys all know each other and they're awesome. And getting to watch the growth of your channel, man, has been so awesome.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's been fun. We're nearing 20K here, so I'm really excited to hopefully cross that soon.
Well, before we get into what Dylan's been up to, I'm not going to show complete favoritism to him. Dude, you had two legends and other great people, but our minds immediately gravitate to the two icons of horror. Tell everybody who you had on recently.
So I was recently interviewing Doug Bradley and Harry Manfredini because they both worked on a movie called The Exorcist, directed by my friend Jose Prendes, and it was a blast. Like we had a great time. We had a great conversation about that film as well as just like Harry's approach towards like music and composing a score, as well as Doug Bradley's performance and how he like approached working on a protagonist character versus like the antagonists we kind of know him as. It was great. I mean, they were both just super nice, super. It was a great interview. It was a really fun hour of just talking to these absolute legends, man. They gave some really great answers about some of the weird questions I had too, which was a lot of fun. And I don't know, it was a great time. It's the best interview I've ever done.
That's just the start of all the stuff you're going to do, man. And I got to ask, if like 3 years ago, when you were still, working a regular job and doing YouTube as just not even fun, like a complete side thing, if someone would have pulled up in the DeLorean and you're there and you're telling yourself, listen, in a few years, you're going to have close to 20,000 subscribers and you're going to get to interview Doug Bradley, what would you have said, man?
Oh, I wouldn't have believed it, man. I mean, it's crazy. I've been pinching myself all week. I can't even believe it happened. I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky, and I'm just so excited to see what the future holds.
And again, it's so much fun watching someone grow. It's just such a awesome thing, man. I'm proud of all the stuff you're doing.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Trying to branch out, do some more stuff on the page too, and it's been fun.
Because, no joking around, you do have a food channel up now that you and one of your buddies are doing. What's that all about?
So I want to start doing more than even just like a horror channel. I see a lot of people like blowing like pretty much every like big content creator at one point has done like a food review or something at least on their page. So I'm trying to like branch out into something that's even more like even more people will be able to check this out. You know, horror is very niche and I love it. It's one of my big passions in life, but I do want to start doing something that maybe can get a wider audience and just talk about another passion in my life, which I hate to admit it, but it's food.
Same here, man. The one thing I am snobby about, and you could ask Dylan this, is pizza.
Ooh.
I'm from New Jersey, so how can I not be a pizza snob?
Right. Hell yeah, man. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to get picky about the pie, man.
Yeah. Oh, so Dylan, you just got back from a huge one of your favorite times of the year, man. Tell everybody about it.
Yeah, so as you all know, slasher reviews here. So I feel very privileged to be able to, most of what I do a lot of times is coverage for film festivals and things like that. But my breadwinner, my favorite place in the whole world is Fantastic Fest. It's in Austin, Texas. It's an 8-day genre film festival. In fact, it's the biggest genre film festival that focuses solely on genre films, and that is horror films, thrillers, transgressive, vile films. In this way that, yes, this is a festival where they would have premieres of things like Martyrs, Human Centipede 2, The Sadness, things like that, like my speed of movies, you know. And you also get a lot of international films and stuff like that. So I just got back. I saw 37 films in a matter of 8 days, living my life, movie to movie, drink to drink. Had the opportunity to sit down with some filmmakers that for an upcoming film called Strange Darling. I have not posted that review because it still doesn't have distribution, so I don't want to post something and, like, you know, we're, you know, so far off into the future or whatnot. But so look out for that. But yeah, it was a blast. So many events. The Saw X premiere kind of happened there. And that was just insane. Just having Jigsaw constantly rolling around the theater, you know, was, you know, and his little Dorothy red slippers that he stole off her corpse was just really great. So yeah. Yeah, just great time. I go every year. So if you need a film festival, I highly recommend going there. I think it's the most bang for your buck. It all takes place under one roof. They schedule about 4 or 5 movies a day, so you can get, you know, sometimes you go to film festivals, the way the schedule links up, you might be able to see one, but then you can't make the other because it starts 15 minutes into another movie. They don't do that there. They schedule them all at certain hour blocks, and then you get out, you can, you know, drink, communicate, talk with people. I highly recommend it. I've been lucky enough. I've been going since 2016, been lucky enough to cover it as press since 2017. So it is just it's the best time of the year. I'm in their pocket for life. I love them. I love all the programmers, all that stuff. So if you're somebody who's like wants to see vile, transgressive films, genre pushing films, you know, some films that might be too terrified to play at other film festivals, Fantastic Fest is not afraid to book them. And those are my people. So yeah. Yeah, I had a great time this year.
That's awesome, man. So, guys, before we get into the list, we got up 2 things. This October has been an amazing month for horror. It felt like every weekend there's been something either in theaters or on streaming that has really knocked it out of the park. I haven't seen The Exorcist Believer yet. I think I'm gonna wait till it comes to Peacock because it's like I have the AMC A-list, so it won't cost me anything for a ticket. But it's like, man, I don't know. I haven't heard that many good reviews for it. But overall, I mean, Saw X was awesome. It was the better version of Saw 6. Well, even though I love Saw 6 so much, but just, well, what's so far, Jake, with all the stuff that's come out so far in October, what's been some of your favorites?
So as far as October goes, I think my absolute favorite one to come out this month that I've seen so far is probably VHS 85. I'm hearing really good things about Dark Harvest, though. I have not had a chance to check that one out yet. I hear multiple reviewers saying that's like their favorite of the year, though, so I'm hyped to check that one out. But VHS 85 was a lot of fun. I really love this new revival that they're going through right now. Bringing this franchise back to life, like especially starting in 2021 with VHS 94, 99. Now this one, I had a blast with it. It was a really good time, and they just announced another one's coming out next year. It's crazy. I think they're just like crazy. They're like really fun throwbacks to the Creep Show anthology format, and I love them for that reason.
Dylan, same question.
I'm gonna be that guy who's gonna say Dark Harvest.
Nice.
I went to the Alamo advanced screening for it, and I'm actually a massive fan. In fact, I think I even have the book. Yeah, like right, be that little plug type of guy. I have the book right above me. This is one of my like go-to classic literatures. It's like Hunger Games meets Over the Garden Wall with a little bit of scary stories to tell in the dark kind of vibes. And it felt like something that would have actually came out in the 80s, kind of riding off the success of Pumpkinhead, because in the 80s they would like one movie would work, then we're gonna have 5 more films that ride off the success of that, and it very much felt like it was riding off the success of Pumpkinhead, but with like an early 2000s like aesthetic. Because it comes from David Slade, who gave us 30 Days of Night. So that's sort of like saturated colors where like we're just going to go with 1 or 2 colors and that's your movie. It has that kind of look to it, and I loved it. I thought it was a great adaptation. Luke Kirby gets to be the sheriff in that movie, and it's going to be a Halloween rotation for me because it takes place around October in the spooky season. So we're kind of already like segueing a little bit into what our topic will be for today, which is great. But yeah, that's been my favorite film of October so far, and I'm so disappointed that it's not going to get the rollout it deserves. But I'm hoping like certain films that might get mentioned today that kind of didn't get theatrical releases have now become like staples in everyone's Halloween like rotation. Like this gets brought up because while there are some, faults in the movie, it has this like aesthetic and this vibe with the movie that just gives it so much gas. And it's also not afraid to get gory. And the look of Sawtooth Jack, who I'm glad that that's the name they chose, because in the book he has 3 different names, like the October Boy and like Sawtooth Jack. And
That's what I always heard. I remember him being called.
yeah, I kind of refer to him as the October Boy. But like he's like they go with Sawtooth Jack, and the look of him, he's like Sam from Trick or Treat, but if he grew up.
Ooh.
And it is practical. You can tell it's practical, which just makes it even better. Like I loved it. And I think it's a movie that like, sure, it might not be the best horror movie of the year, which you could argue is like Talk to Me or something on the lines of that, made with like class or whatnot. But it's a movie that like I think horror fans are really going to enjoy because it harkens back to an era of movies that just feels comforting. So I could rave about it. I was a big fan of Dark Harvest. So yeah, that's probably been my favorite October watch out, like with I guess no, I can't say Saw X because it came out right at the end of September.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to go with. I didn't watch it till October. Natty Knox, the new Dwight H. Little movie. We just had him on the show recently, and that was a really fun, Halloween-esque movie. It definitely had the vibe because it's set on Halloween. But yeah, definitely check that out. It's on Tubi right now, so it won't cost you a dime to see it.
God, we love Tubi. Tubi feeds us.
There's
Free with ads.
Have you seen Jake the 3rd Saturday in October? Or have you heard about it?
No, 3rd Saturday in October. Is this a
no.
new? No, I've not heard about this.
It's the 3rd Saturday in October, part 4 and part 1.
I'm gonna correct you on that. I'm gonna be that little film snob. It's part 5.
Oh, okay. Explain why they did that, because I know you
Yeah.
saw it before I did.
I know. It was actually one of the few I remember because I actually reviewed it because I saw it at the Chattanooga Film Festival. And I actually reviewed it immediately. Normally with TikTok, I kind of wait till close to the release because it's just like when I reviewed the Black Phone, it was like, what's your thoughts on the Black Phone? And I had saw it like almost a year or so ago. And then I just got constant get comments. I'm like, it's on the count. Just scroll, people. So now I kind of wait till closer to the release. But the 3rd Saturday in October is pretty much, that's a big day for football fans.
Yeah.
It's a big day between these 2 rivals, but there's a killer who goes out, especially when 2 teams are playing, and pretty much goes and kills them. And like, it's a slasher, whatnot. But the way that the director made it, he made both movies together, but he called one part 5 and then one just the 3rd the third Saturday in October. And the way he actually intends you to watch it is part 5 first and then the original. Because back in the 80s, most people, when they watched horror films, they were just going to their local video store or going to the local cable network. So most people probably saw Halloween 2 or Halloween 4 before they even saw the original. But he also shot it with the lack of quality in mind too that would happen by the time you get to the 5th film. So part 5 is a full-blown just trash movie. So when I saw it, when they showed it at the Chattanooga, they showed us part 5 first. Now you can watch whichever one you want to watch first, but the first part is like a bona fide, like it has that sort of, it kind of reminded me, what's the Ty West film? The House of the Devil, where it's just got like this like aesthetic, like 70s aesthetic, and like it's meant to be taken seriously. But part 5 has like it's just all about the kills. It's the lore doesn't make any sense anymore, and everybody. But yeah, it's this one Saturday in October, where this massive football rival game goes on, and the killer is going into houses during gaming. It's a great movie. I love both of them, and I love the gimmick of it all too. So yeah.
So definitely check it out, Jake. I know you'll like it. It's right up your alley.
Oh, nice. Okay, I'll have to check that one out. I gotta admit, I've been pretty disappointed by a lot of October releases this year. Like some of the other ones I've seen is like Pet Sematary Bloodlines, Totally Killer, Exorcist Believer. Like I'm just like, I don't know, none of those really did it for me at all. So I'm really hoping for something big this year. Especially with like Five Nights at Freddy's still upon us, the Hell House prequel or whatever. I'm hoping to be impressed by something, but so far, like VHS 85, it was fun, but I don't know, it didn't knock my socks off. So I'm really hoping for a big surprise this month.
Wow. Jake, someone here might have a screener of the new Hell House that he could forward to you after this episode if you want to see it.
Oh, well, shit.
Because we had the vice president of programming on the show, so we get like screeners now from Shudder. So I'll send it over to you. Just don't mention it. Oh, wait.
Luckily, people know how to hit the delete button when they're going through an edit,
Last piece of news before we get into the list. We know the new home of Halloween. A lot of people were jumping the gun and reporting that A24 had the rights. Now, I'm going to give my opinion on it, and this is also about Blumhouse too, an issue I see them having. Now, I love Blumhouse. I just did a whole video how Jason Blum saved horror. But I think two big problems they're having, and I'm glad, even though I'm not a big A24 fan, they didn't go this route. I think Blumhouse works best when they do original movies and, the sequels to those, but also, not going into other, like the Halloween movies, those were cool, but they didn't feel like Blumhouse. And that's why when you compare, like now, I love Totally Killer. I need Totally Freaky Birthday. That movie has to happen. But when Blumhouse goes out of their lane, for lack of a better word, the movies aren't as good as their originals. And my fear with A24 getting Halloween, that they would be going out of their lane. Because when they do the elevated horror, I know they probably don't like that word. Nobody does it better than them. At all. Midsommar, not one of my favorites, but it is legitimately a great movie. I don't think they would have done a good Halloween movie. Crystal Lake intrigues me, how they're gonna go about it. But Jake, what are your thoughts on the new home of Halloween?
So Miramax has it, and they plan on doing like a TV show and doing a cinematic universe and all that. And I don't know, man. I look back at the whole franchise, and when I see like some of the weirder ones, like if it's like Season of the Witch, Part 6, Halloween Ends, I like some of these movies. Like I really enjoy Curse, I really enjoy Part 3, but majority of fans do not. Like these are movies that did not do very well at the box office, or are divisive amongst fans. I just feel like the most successful route at this point with a franchise that will now be going on to potentially the 14th film or a TV series, whatever, is just keep it simple. Like, I look at these new franchises where they're doing these pocket stories. If it's Prey, if it's Saw X, like, these are killer movies. I loved these films so much, and they really don't affect the franchise that they're in that much. Like Saw X, you could watch that movie without having seen any of the other 9 films of that franchise and still have a really good time with it. I really think whatever they do next, keep it simple, have it be about Michael Myers killing somebody in Haddonfield, but a brand new set of teenagers or characters, whatever. If that's, you know, via a TV series or a show, I just don't like, I just don't think the Halloween Ends approach or the Season of the Witch approach is going to really do anything for fans at this point. But that's just my opinion. Like, this is coming from someone who loves Season of the Witch too. Like, I unapologetically love that movie, but if they make a sequel to it, it's not going to be good. And I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's arguable at this point if we need another Michael film, but I just think the only way they're going to find success is just to give us simple, clean cut slasher without any, you know, like meta or references or anything. Just give us simplicity. That's what a lot of people want nowadays, I think. And that's going to be the fastest route to success for them.
Dylan?
Yeah, no. Well, as someone who is a massive fan of A24, and I like a lot of their stuff that they put
Got
out.
a tattoo of A24.
He likes to make a
He
joke.
has, people, weeboos have their favorite anime character. He has that of the A24 logo. There's a picture of the guy who made Midsummer.
Full on tramp stamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, full on tramp stamp. No, no, I'm a big fan of A24. And I know that it also recently came out in the news that, and I think a lot of people are making it too much of news about how A24 wants to branch out and, you know, get more IPs and make bigger movies. But I'm like, they're just following in a lot of ways the Blumhouse method. Like, Blumhouse makes movies for cheap, but eventually, you know, if a movie doesn't do good, it doesn't make any money. So then therefore they don't have that revenue of an IP or something like that it would give them to stay afloat. So when I hear A24 is like going to dabble a little bit into IPs, I'm like, yeah, they want Halloween, they want Friday the 13th, they want that stuff. So then they can continue to keep on making movies like Beau is Afraid. So even when Beau is Afraid fails, they've got a little bit of network to catch them. And so therefore they're satisfying all demographics and in a lot of ways. So I don't feel like it's like it's like when people like complain about like, yeah, I don't like a lot of the superhero stuff, but like superhero movies help fund little smaller films at the end of the day. So it's just like, and when people like, there's no original movies, I'm like, well, you're just not looking.
You're not looking. I totally agree.
Yeah, you're just simply not looking. There are more movies now than there have ever been. It's almost overwhelming every weekend how many movies I want to watch and then how many I end up actually getting down to. And it's just like, come on now. I'm okay with, I like the idea of Halloween personally at A24. I imagine they would have probably taken a very Ty West approach to it, which was probably like, we're going to make it scary again. Their whole probably pitch was making it scary and simple. Personally, I'm not a big, now Miramax has always had an involvement with Halloween, but like the Miramax exclusive Halloween movies, we're talking Resurrection here. You know, we're talking some films that I have personally not been a fan of. And I know I get a lot of weird flack when I say the David Gordon Green timeline is my definitive timeline, but I'm like, look, you take out 5. You take out, people are like, you take out 5 of Resurrection, then it's definitive. Like, you can't take out any sequels. You get this timeline or this timeline. I can handle Halloween Kills and Ends more than I can handle 5 in Resurrection. So that's why for me, David Gordon Green's timeline is my definitive timeline. And Miramax had involvement with those films. And I feel like maybe hopefully Miramax is going to take some, you know, logic and whatnot with it. But we all know I'm a Jason boy. I've always been a Jason guy. So I'm just more focused. I'm just hoping that every time I hear anything about A24 and a new horror franchise, my brain is just like, oh, everything must be going absolutely flawless with this Crystal Lake TV show, and they're just wanting to do more. They just want to do more. That like the Crystal Lake show is going so well that they're just going to do more Friday. They just want more of it. Because honestly, I would sacrifice Michael for this Crystal Lake show to be great, if that meant, yeah, because Jason's always been my boy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Out of curiosity, Jake, what is your definitive Halloween timeline?
That's really tough. I mean, I really do enjoy the David Gordon Green movies. That's probably like, I think if you ended at Kills, I'm happy with that. Like if you just if you go the original 2018 Kills, that's my headcanon with how it all ends with the tragedy. Because I just don't feel like ends really adds much to the story besides actually just killing Michael right at the end. But it just feels like an afterthought to me. It's not even really the focus of the movie. So that to me is my timeline. But I do really like Halloween, the original Halloween 2 a lot. And then so I guess you could have a timeline where it's like Halloween 1, Halloween 2, H2O, and like I'm happy with that too. Once again, just cutting off that other movie that never happened. Don't worry about it. No, but so either of those are the ones I find myself watching the most, at least. So I think that's one of those, either or. If I want a tragedy, go the David Gordon Green route. If I want kind of uplifting, triumphant ending for Jamie Lee Curtis and Laurie Strode, I go to the H2O route.
H2O is my definitive timeline. H2O is my favorite Halloween movie, oddly enough, and mainly because, Scream is my favorite movie, and it is pretty much the first cousin of Scream, H2O. I think in that recent podcast, oh my God, Williamson said, he did a lot of the writing on it. It's just they didn't do it in time to give him credit as the main screenwriter or something.
You can feel it. I mean, you can feel that it's Kevin Williamson's writing. He's so unique. It's impossible to miss.
Yeah. So, guys, we are about to get really snobby with our list. So, when people talk about what movies they watch on Halloween and they're like, oh man, I'm going to watch Evil Dead, Friday the 13th, I'm like, those are summer movies. Why are you watching them on Halloween night? To me, a Halloween movie that you're going to watch this time of year, and again, this is all tongue in cheek, everybody. Don't hate me too much. The movie has to be set on or around Halloween. Have that full vibe, because if I'm watching, Jason Lives on Halloween, I'm like, man, it's nice and summery out there. This doesn't feel right. So we are going to give you some honorable mentions, but our 5 movies we think everybody should watch on Halloween. And since Dillon, you don't count as a guest, you're the other host, we're going to let Jake give his either honorable mention or number 5 first.
So I have 5 movies. Honorable mention. I'd have to think of something off the top of my head.
So what's your number 5?
Well, my number 5 would probably be Ginger Snaps. I really like this movie. I feel like it's very underrated. It's a thousands horror movie that it plays around with like werewolves. It's very much so like female coming of age movie. It's very similar to like The Craft, but with werewolves is like how I like to describe it. I really like it. It doesn't get talked about it as much. And I feel like it's got that fall aesthetic that you were just talking about that maybe other films don't.
Have you seen any of the sequels?
I've only seen the first one.
Oh, 2 is so. 3, because it's like a back in time one, is way better than 2, I think. Dylan, before you give us your number 5, thoughts on Ginger Snaps?
I love Ginger Snaps, and I even like Ginger Snaps too. I love Ginger Snaps, and I can't tell you as a kid watching that hallway sequence, just like what it did to my body. Like it was just such a great. The Ginger Snaps is awesome. It's just a great werewolf film. I've always been more of a werewolf guy over vampires. I know there's always this debate or whatnot, but I've always been more of a werewolf. As someone who is massively hairy, as you can tell, it's
you got the Robin Williamson thing going on.
I love Ginger Snaps. Great film.
I want to bring back the Smells Like Teen Horror podcast, but I really feel we would need to have some ladies on to talk about it, because it is getting your first period. That's a huge thing. And, none of us know what that's like.
No.
No comment on that.
Yeah, I ain't got can't say.
So,
Can't
Dylan,
can't come no.
what is your fifth favorite movie to watch during the Halloween season?
So I normally always start with this movie when I start. I hate to be pretentious, but it's a documentary. It is Haunters, the Art of the Scare. I love this documentary so much. It is the most wholesome look at haunted houses and scare actors and the commitments that they go to perfecting that perfect scare, whether it's some haunts that they put on their backyard or things that they put on with the community. And it goes all the way to the extremes, to the McKinney Manor, where they sign the NDAs and nobody ever makes it out, and that whole thing. If you don't know about it, you should watch the documentary because it explores it and it goes full in depth on it. And I love this documentary, and and it's just so celebratory of Halloween. And then every time I watch, it's like, oh, I want to go to every haunt. I want to go to Halloween Horror Nights every year. So it's just like everything. It like explores it all. And I just think it's a great documentary. I think it's streaming for free on Tubi. And I have to watch it every year. It's just a documentary that I normally watch in the first half. Actually, I haven't watched it yet, but I normally try to watch in the first half. So therefore, it inspires me to just spend the entire October consuming nothing but spooky stuff. So yeah.
Have you seen that, Jake? Because it's been a while since I've seen it.
I have not. I haven't gotten too much so into documentaries. I've been really focusing on just like horror films the past like 4 years. But I'll have to check that one out. It sounds cool.
Yeah.
My number five is kind of a really newer one, and I just saw it in theaters opening day and loved it, and that is Hellfest. It was such a fun movie, and I can't do theme park like haunts because I get seizures, so the flashing lights would kill me. So getting to experience that was so much fun, and it has such a fall vibe to it. It feels cold and cozy while you're watching it. And it's really close to a Halloween movie we almost got. If you guys heard about that weird take on Halloween, I forget who the guys who did the Night House, they were offered to do a Halloween movie, and it was this take.
David Bruckner. You talking
Yeah,
about Bruckner? Yeah.
it was going to be this weird take where Michael was just going to be this guy who shows up in random towns killing people. And Hellfest just had a great fun feel to it. One of my least favorite YouTube reviewers, Chris Stuckman, did this review, and I'll tell you why. Me and Dillon have reasons we don't like. I am a good writer. People in Hollywood, I hate when he did that. I'll explain the joke later, Jake. He complained that there were too many jump scares in the movie, but what he forgot was they were in haunted attractions during the movie. So jump scares are gonna happen to make it authentic.
It'd almost be weird if that movie didn't have jump scares,
Exactly. Yeah. What were your guys' thoughts on that?
Oh, I love that one. Oh, that one's fantastic. Hellfest, I think another reason I really appreciate it is I don't think the acting is much to write home about. That's maybe my only like big critique of it. I think the director kind of let the people just like do what they want, essentially, like get from point A to point B, essentially, for scenes. I thought that was really cool. Some of it doesn't land for me, but I do love a lot of the kills. I love the killer, and I love the ending, especially the ending. Oh my, it humanizes this killer character you've been following the whole time, but it's also just really messed up. It's like anyone could do this in a weird way, is like almost what it's trying to say. And I thought that was really compelling, really interesting stuff there.
Yeah, Dylan?
No, I'm a massive Hellfest because it is written by one of the greatest voices of horror in our lifetime and will ever live, and that is Akilah Cooper, who would go on to birth James Wan's greatest cinematic masterpiece known as *Malignant*, and then also go on to write *Megan*. And I worship of her. I worship Akilah Cooper. So I am a Hellfest fanatic. I love Hellfest, and I just like how simple it is. It doesn't try to be anything other than what it is. And I just think it's pure fun. And yeah, Team Akila Cooper, she's like one of my favorite. Like, yeah, you could argue that, like, you know, all these other people are better writers. I don't care. You're boring. Akila Cooper. I'm a big fan of Hellfest, and I just like it's simple, it's straightforward. It's just, you know, it's a haunt, kill be killed, killer be killed. Yeah, no, it's a great film.
One thing I loved is, again, my favorite era was for horror was the late 90s to early 2000s, because they always had the guy or girl from that show or movie. And, we had the girl from the Scream TV series. I can't remember her name, but, I like the first and second season of the Scream series. Sucks they never did a third season. That would have been cool.
Mm.
But Jake, what is your number 4?
So to bring a little more modern horror into this, I loved this movie called Cobweb from earlier in the year that no one's talking about. I'm like, why? This movie got like absolutely fucked for some reason. Like they decided to release it in like limited theaters during Barbenheimer weekend, and no one even knows about this film. And I think that just sucks because it's so good. I don't know why it got a summer release. This is a fall horror movie if I've ever seen one. It is like constant. It's like very gray, but it's also like showing you like orange leaves and stuff. I love it. The performances from like Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Stark, is that his name? I want to say Tony Stark, but I'm like, that's not right. So good in this movie. Just a phenomenal little horror flick.
Movie a bigger hit if Tony Stark would have been
right.
Not Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark.
The character of Tony Stark is playing the dad in this film. Yes, that is 100% true. No, but it's phenomenal. Went under the radar. It's got some great twists and some excellent writing. Like I have a big pet peeve about bullies in horror movies. I feel like they do the same thing every single time. Like it's not effective, but it's just they do the same thing every time. The bullies are dicks to your main character or whatever, and then they get killed. The same thing happens every single time. In this movie, we break that mold in a super effective and efficient way that I love. I don't know. Every element to this movie was recycled or repurposed for every single act. It is a really interesting structure, and it's not just the generic horror movie that I think some people may look at it from a distance and say that's what it is. It's so much more than that. Loved it. Great time. One of my favorite horror movies of the year.
That is also that is not only one of my favorite horror movies of the year, it's one of my favorite movies just of the year in general. I am so thrilled you said Cowboy. So what I did is I wrote a long list of films, and I was like, well, if somebody already mentions it, I don't want to be the guy who just regurgitates what somebody else has already said. So it's like, but Cowboy was I had that one also listed down. It was yeah, it is so good. And it's got effective scare tactics. The way that movie just like messes with you and what direction you think you're going in. It's a movie you want to go into blind. You don't know it's a Halloween movie when you like watch the trailer. So it was very weird in like hot, humid summer. I'm watching this movie on a screener on my computer, and I'm like, why is this not coming out in like September, October to feed off of the spooky season? It is a shame how this movie like just got swept under the rug. Like I had mentioned earlier with Dark Harvest. It's like these movies are like built for the season, and yeah, there's some effective scares. The whole final act is just fantastic. I've got one minor complaint, and that's with the substitute teacher. I feel like the teacher is just kind of just like a little bit of a throwaway character. There was another movie that came out, and I'm kind of blanking on it, that had a teacher subplot.
It lives inside. Oh my God.
Yeah, there we go. And I felt like the teacher subplot was a better handled in that movie, but I think Cobweb's a better film. But and I was just like, but ultimately, like, a Cobwebs is a statement, and like we're filming this on the day after Friday 13th. So it actually is going to be available on Hulu on October 20th. And I think if people have Hulu or haven't done a free trial of Hulu, Cobweb is worthy of doing a free trial for. You can also watch The Empty Man. I worship at the altar of The Empty Man. You can also watch that on Hulu too. So 2 reasons why you should get Hulu right now. You can watch The Empty Man and Cobweb.
So is Cobweb your number 4, or do you have something else?
I have something else. I was like, I guess my number 4 now is going to be Terrifier 2. I worship at the altar of Art the Clown. And I love him. I love him. He is completely deranged and psychotic. And I love that the director, Damien, was just pretty much like, okay, y'all gave me all this money. I could make an 80-minute version, but I'm just going to pad on like 2.5 hours of this just because I can. And like, I don't care about rhyme or reason. We want to go magical at one point, fine. We want to have dream sequences, that's fine. This movie don't actually logistically make a lot of sense. And I don't care because Art the Clown is being Art the Clown in his glory fashion. And it's just like when he's in that store, it's comedy gold. You know, when he's killing all those kids, it's gold. It's just, I love this movie. And also it has a phenomenal final girl. What a phenomenal costume that she's just, kicking ass in. And I love this movie, and I'm so thrilled it's already coming back to cinemas. And I'm thrilled that this is a movie that I'm glad that it got the life and praise that it did, because I feel like sometimes a movie like this, it's honestly it's got the Malignant effect, where it took only like what would take a decade for that level of like love to come to a movie. And I'm sure a movie we're going to talk all about later, where it took a decade for people to really kind of fall in love with it. This love kind of happened in a weekend, when it like, this thing made $1 million. What? I want to go see it, and I love Terrifier 2. And I think Art the Clown is like a true bona fide horror icon, in a way that we haven't seen, in a really long time. One that's like actually legitimately like deranged and demented, and not just tiptoeing in like the camp of it all. So yeah, no, I have Terrifier 2 as my number 4.
I think you might have mentioned one of Jake's movies a little earlier, because I'm going to let you, Jake, because I know you love this movie so much. So give us really quick your thoughts on it.
This was my number 1. I love Terrifier 2. I think it is like here's the thing. Okay, I'm sorry. I got a rant. I got a real quick rant to go on about this. So I also love A24. Like Dillon, A24 floored me. I saw Hereditary in theaters, and I was forever a fan. I was like, I need to see everything this company has put out. I am like Ari Aster. I need a fucking back tattoo of him too. I love this company so much. But I think in the last maybe like 5 or 6 years of horror, there has been a lot of movies that have tried to emulate that, like tried to be smarter than they are with their scripts. Yeah. And not every movie calls for that. Terrifier 2, I think the reason that it has the success it has right now, it's blowing up. Like so many horror fans are like, oh my God, this is great. We have a new horror icon, is because they're going back to basics of just keeping a simple slasher be something that's so popular, and just creating an icon, having fun with something that's a little more simple. And that's okay. I think that's why it's cutting through so much right now, for that reason. Once again, I love A24 movies. I love how thought-provoking they are. Midsummer, I love the director's cut you got in the background, Dillon. I see that as well.
Yeah.
I noticed that earlier, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. But like, I love these movies, but I'm so happy that Terrifier 2 kind of broke the mold and gave us just a simple slasher again. And I'm so excited for Terrifier 3 for that reason as well. I like both things, like I think some people could look at something like Terrifier and say it's whatever. It's just an 80s slasher again. But I disagree. It adds so much to the conversation about horror right now. It's gruesome in ways that some films would never dare to be nowadays. And yeah, like you said, I mean, one of the best final girls maybe in horror history, alongside a new slasher icon, which is something that is so rare nowadays, especially in the last like 10 years or so. So I don't know. I love everything Terrifier 2 did. It's one of my favorite horror films of all time, and I'm just so glad it exists. I can't wait for Terrifier 3. Like, I am actively counting the days until it comes out.
Yeah. And I think I agree with every freaking statement. I have to chime back in because, yeah, I think like horror fans don't care about like imperfections with a movie, as long as it's being like the desire and the love is there, it's a 5-star film. They don't care if they can see strings. They don't care if like things are rough around the edges. In fact, sometimes the roughness makes a movie even better. And Terrifier 2 just kind of like relishes in that, and takes us back to like a golden standard of horror. And as slasher reviews, as a slasher fan, it's just everything and more. And I'm just I need Terrifier 3 today.
And I liked it. I can't say I loved it, but again, it's all filmed in New Jersey, and so immediately that makes me like it. And what I love about it so much is it balances the force, for lack of a better word, because the great thing about horror is something like Hereditary can be a masterpiece, and then something like Terrifier 2 could be a masterpiece. You can't look at dramas and go, a really bad drama is a really bad movie. But with horror, if it's kind of bad and trashy, it doesn't matter because that makes it good. So my number 4 is going to be weird because it is the complete opposite end of the spectrum of horror. And this is something, if you have a kid or a niece or nephew and you want to watch something scary with them, watch The Halloween Tree. It is the adaptation of a Ray Bradbury book. It's this animated film that takes place on Halloween night. They never give out the year, but it's in this small town. So this group of friends is going to meet their buddy, who is known as the greatest kid that ever lived. He's like the most adventurous one, but he's really sick and is rushed to the hospital. So there's this guy, I forget his name, but he's coming to take the kid's pumpkin because he's going to die. So his friends go off on this adventure through time to different eras of Halloween. There's like a whole thing in the Egyptian era. Then there's a Day of the Dead celebration. And then they go to Salem. So it's just a great, fun, heartwarming movie. Complete opposite than Terrifier 2. It's on Tubi. Leonard Nimoy is the voice of the main bad guy. And they never really say if he's a bad guy or not, because it's like, is he bad or is he just the spirit of Halloween? Have any of you seen this or heard of it?
I've heard of it. I think it sits in my Letterboxd watch list and is collecting dust, if I'm being honest. But I have not seen this, no.
Jake?
I have not either. It sounds really fun though. Like I also have a movie on my list that's a little more like basically G-rated. Because there's a lot of great movies like that have the fall aesthetic that don't get talked about enough, I think. So that's a great choice.
Yeah, and again, it's just the Cartoon Network did it in the early 90s, so it's got that great 2D animation, kind of like Don Bluth, the guy who did American Tail and like The Rats of Mim, The Secret of Nim, if you ever saw that. So highly, highly recommend it. I usually start Halloween with watching that movie. So Jake, give us your number 3, sir.
Just to kind of touch on that again, like I do think that there's a lot of great horror movies that are like essentially made for kids. And like these 2 movies to me, I'm gonna say 2 movies, but basically they're kind of like I just grouped them together in my mind for whatever reason. Coraline and fucking Monster House. I couldn't think of that. These 2 movies, like they have that fall aesthetic, but they're like GPG, whatever kind of movies like that. They're kids movies, but I think that they're great for getting you into the vibe of this time of year. Like you put that on, you get on like a pot of apple cider and stir it with a cinnamon stick and all that. Like that's the kind of that's the fall vibe that I feel like is a little more family friendly, but still gets you into that mood of like sitting around with like a hoodie on and it's a little cold outside. Like they emanate that vibe so well. I feel like it would kind of be like a mistake to not mention them in a weird way.
I would also add
I love that.
to that. That's another great animated horror movie.
If we're talking just about random kids horror films that I think are great gateways, I mean, this isn't even on my list, but I wrote them down as backups in case if something else got mentioned. You can't go wrong with the Halloween Towns, especially Halloween 2, and the Scooby-Doo movies, okay, on Zombie Island and Witches Ghosts. I mean, come on now, the Hex Girls. We were there, honey. That was the best concert of my childhood. So yeah, there's a lot of really great like gateway horror, and I even like recently, like with The House with the Clock in Its Walls, with I mean, I love that movie despite the weird Jack Black turning into a baby scene. That was traumatic, but also yeah, there's a lot of really great gateway horror, and there's more and more that feels like that comes out every year. So yeah.
What's your number 3?
Okay, number 3. I have a film I think somebody might mention, but it's another modern film. It is Haunt. I love Haunt. It is a simple, straightforward. We are going. See, I'm not a big fan. So Haunt is to me everything that I felt like the house that October built failed to kind of capitalize on, in the way that we have these scare actors. Let's let them be scare actors, and you have these amazing kills. You have this amazing sets and all these really great creativeness to it, great characters. And it just feels so Halloween because it's doing things that we like to do, most people like to do around the Halloween season, and that is get scared. So it's playing off a lot of like the elements of like things that like Hellfest kind of also do, but in my opinion, it just does it with a little bit more of an R-rated tag. So it's not afraid to get bloody and gory, and I love just the whole final act and when they're putting their little hands through the thing. It's just a lot of really great set pieces, and I'm shocked that we don't have like a Haunt 2 or 3 or 4, or why this isn't like a Shudder like series or whatnot in the way like VHS is or something. But ultimately, I just think Haunt is a great film, and it's an easy one to recommend. It's like if you got a Shudder subscription or you got that, you should check out Haunt. It's perfect for the Halloween season. It's an easy film to recommend, and it's an easy film to enjoy. So yeah, I love Haunt.
Hey, thoughts on Haunt?
I feel like me and Dillon are reading each other's minds. Haunt was my number 2, and
Oh.
I could not agree more with what you said about this being just a better version of like the houses that October built. Like I could not agree more with that. That's my exact thoughts on this film. I love how it captures like the essence of what it's like to run a haunted house, but also take that to like a wild extreme as well. Like I couldn't agree more with that. I love this film so much. I believe it was written by Scott Beck and Brian Woods as well. And I think that they put out a lot of movies recently where I'm just not crazy about them, but like A Quiet Place and this one, like I think they're just so good. Whatever magic they had here, I just wish they could recapture that in one of their newer projects. But man, I love this movie so much. It's such a great watch for this time of year, and it doesn't get talked about. Like there's a part of me that wants to say like, oh, you got to watch Halloween, you got to watch Trick or Treat during this time of year. But everyone will tell you that. You know what I mean? This is one that doesn't get talked about as much, that I would say is close to that quality of this is a really good horror film for this time of year, captures the fall aesthetic and the haunt vibes. If you're a big fan of going through haunted houses.
Awesome.
Yeah.
My number 3 is not just one of my favorite Halloween movies. It's an important movie to me. Dylan, this movie doesn't get made. We don't do Hillsborough Road. We don't go to Texas for a month. Now, caveats I have to add, I am friends with the director, and he did donate the Hillsborough Road, and that is Justin M. Seaman, the guy who made The Barn. If you haven't seen The Barn, it really started, I feel, it was right around the major things, Stranger Things, but this is a movie set in the 80s about this guy who is just obsessed with Halloween and this legend in his town about knocking on a barn on Halloween, and the candy corn scarecrow, the boogeyman, and the other ghosts come out to get you. It's set in a small town, super cheap, and it adds to the charm of the movie. I mean, I have it on Blu-ray, DVD. I'm gonna buy the VHS eventually. It's such an important movie to me. And I'm not saying it's a great movie. It's good, but it's just the fact that someone without millions went out and made a movie set in the 80s and was able to make it popular. I mean, this movie blew up big time when it first came out. All the like bloody bed bath bloodbath and beyond was talking about it, and it's just one of my favorites. Have you guys seen it? I know you've seen it, Dylan. Jake,
I've seen The Barn, and I've seen The Barn 2, baby, and
my name
honey.
is in the barn too.
Yeah, I love The Barn, and it kind of in a way, is what we were talking about with Terrifier 2. It's like, yeah, there are like maybe some imperfections, there might be some shortages in the budget where it, like when you watch the original Terrifier, you can tell that like, yeah, they didn't have money, but they had it, they were filmmakers with a dream, and pay it forward now, and then later on, you're going to get that bona fide sequel, like that Terrifier 2 sequel. That's just where the lid goes off. And yeah, no, I think The Barn is just, it's a great film. And I enjoy The Barn 2 as well. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan, and I had a feeling you were going to say that. I thought it would be an honorable mention or something like that. But yeah, yeah, if you haven't seen The Barn, I do recommend checking them out.
Have you seen it, Jake?
I have not, but I've had it recommended to me a few times. I think I'm going to add that to my watch list for this month, because this is now like the third time it's been brought up in a conversation. I got to check this one out. I love back to basic slashers too, and I feel like there's not as many of them as I would like in the world of horror right now. So I'm going to check this one out.
It's on Tubi. You should definitely check it out, because it'll inspire you, man. As a filmmaker, and Dylan is a filmmaker too. It's dangerous because it's going to make you go out there and, I know you're working on other films, but it's going to make you do another feature, man. I guarantee that.
I am working on a slasher right now. I just can't say much about it, but I'm very excited about it. So good stuff.
Awesome. So you've already said your number two, but go more in depth about your number two, Jake.
Well, just to talk a little more about Haunt, like I really agree with what Dylan said about this being a franchise. Like I think especially with how it ends, it's like this. Why is this not a franchise? Why is there not at least one sequel? Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of Shudder originals that are very hit or miss sometimes, and I just think that if they would continue like something like this, like that would be awesome. Like I would love another one of these with another house filled with weird traps. And that are kind of like symbolic to stuff from like this character's life. That's really, that's interesting. I could see another one of these being made. I don't think it would be that hard of a format to recapture either. Like, yeah, let's get another one. Haunt is great though. Like I don't know. I can't recommend it more. I don't even know what else to say about it. It's brutal. It's fun. It's got that October feel to it that so many people love, and that kind of I think a lot of what the conversation is here is being talked about. This movie captures that really well. Go check it out. It's a very underrated 2019 horror flick.
Yeah, it's awesome. And just so you know, I just sent you the Hell House thing. I didn't want to forget it.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Anytime. Dylan, I know your thoughts on Haunt, but what is your number two?
Look, I already know because I know Eric for too many years, what his 2 and 1 are. So I'm not going to include those in my list because I absolutely love them, and they are rotations for me. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put that out there. Number 2 is I have to watch it.
If I tell Jake we weren't related, he would have probably thought we were related.
Yeah. My number 2, I have to have a bona fide horror film, like something that I think is legitimately scary, like something that like legitimately gets under my skin. And while it doesn't take place on Halloween, it takes place throughout the entire month of October. And we are talking about Paranormal Activity, the OG. I have to watch this every October. This was the greatest theatrical experience I've ever had in my life. Watching this back in 2009, is like if you Google it, it says it came out in 2007, but it came out in 2009. That's when it was like doing its like, please go to theaters and demand this. Well, I happened to be one of the lucky folks. When you go and watch that original trailer, and they had those 9 theaters, they had Durham, North Carolina, baby. So I begged my parents, and I was like, please let me go. We got our tickets at 10 a.m. because I just knew it was going to sell out. We got the last 2 tickets. And honey, it to me is my 1973 Exorcist experience, where like when you go back and you watch those reactions of people walking out of The Exorcist, I was experiencing that. I've only had that happen twice in my life. And the second time was with Gerald's Game. I was to get to stroke my ego for a second. I was at the world premiere of that, so I got to watch that in the cinema. So watching people lose their mind, exactly. But this was the greatest theater experience I've ever had, was with the original Paranormal Activity. So I have to watch this every October, which ultimately then leads me going down an entire franchise rewatch. But this is the scariest movie I've ever seen. Like, yeah, it might not be my favorite movie. My favorite movie is obviously Jason Lives, for selfish reasons, but this is the scariest movie I've ever seen. I knew I was practically running in place in the theater. Everyone, it felt like watching a Marvel movie back when like Marvel was putting out good content, where they were like, everyone was collectively, universally on the same page. You didn't have to ask your neighbor, be like, what'd you think of that? Like, and they'd be like, you'd be like, I didn't think it was scary, or I thought it was scary. No, like collectively, everybody was universally on the same page while watching this movie. The moment the chandelier started swinging, I knew I messed up. I was like, get me out of here. I'm a massive found footage fan. I have to have found footage in my life constantly. It is like probably in my top 3 favorite subgenres of horror. And this is to me the scariest movie I've ever seen. So, and it takes place throughout the entirety of October. So for me, it feels demonic. So like this actually, like to me, the first, like it feels demonic when I watch this movie. And I was like, it's like one of those few movies. It's like I get a little nervous every time I go back to rewatch it. You know, like when you rewatch like Blair Witch, you know, so like I'm gonna watch it. I've seen this before. Why do I feel like a little pit in my stomach every time? And it's this movie is like it's a high that I'm always chasing. So I always just like to watch for the nostalgia factor of, you know, the connection that I've had with it. So yeah, my number 2 is Paranormal Activity. So yeah.
Hey, thoughts on Paranormal Activity?
I love this whole franchise like so much. And I feel like it gets a bad rap nowadays because like there's a bunch of found footage movies that have done something similar or maybe have found ways to be conventionally more scary, like in a more modern way. But there's something about that original film that really does capture some kind of horrifying vibe that I just don't get from any other found footage flick. I love this whole franchise. Really, there's ups and downs. You know, there's movies I don't like, there's movies I do really like, but I think every movie has at least something that's really scary or something that's different from the last. Paranormal Activity 4 too is one where I'm like, I don't know why people don't like this one. Like Catherine Newton is phenomenal in the lead.
Oh my God. Okay. You are so cool. Yeah, I love Paranormal Activity. I remember I'm such a Paranormal Activity fanatic that since I saw all of them at early advanced screenings, I even drove. The only one that I could not, like, they weren't doing an advanced screening for, it was still on Thursday night. I had to drive and practically secretly beg the theater to play it early. And that was for Ghost Dimensions, which wasn't good, but I drove like 2 hours to go watch that in the cinemas in 3D. Because I'm a massive Paranormal Activity, and I love Paranormal Activity 4. I saw that in IMAX, baby. I was like, I gave it IMAX dollars. I am a Paranormal Activity fanatic. The only one I really don't like is Ghost Dimensions, but even that has the gimmick of 3D, so there's a little bit of a camp charm to it, I guess, even though narratively, like logistically, doesn't make much sense. But God, big massive fan of this entire franchise. I even like the marked one. Well, like the recent one that came
Next
out.
of Kin.
Next of Kin. I even kind of enjoyed that one too. I was trying something slightly different. I won't be surprised if they make a Paranormal Activity 8 and they try to do like a legacy type of thing. You know, give Katie and Mika tons of money.
Yeah, because like Next of Kin is it's just a found footage movie. You know, it's not a paranormal horror.
Yeah, we're on an Amish community, and we're just banking on the Paranormal Activity. But if you watch it as a found footage movie, maybe not so much as a Paranormal Activity film, you know, it's really fun. And I mean, I was deep. I don't know if y'all remember the marketing for this movie back in the day. It was brilliant. Wow. Brilliant. Like Paranormal Activity 2, you would go to a website, and then if you paused the website at certain things, you would see the little images in the static, and like demons and stuff like that, or like with the baby and things like that. Like the marketing was just absolutely brilliant. And like I was too young when Blair Witch came out, so I watched it back when I was finally getting into horror and stuff like that. And but so I missed that kind of marketing craze. But Paranormal Activity, I was there for.
You were the demographic.
I was 100% the demographic. So like Paranormal Activity saw those early 2000s, for better or for worse, kind of raised me, so I was 100% the demographic. And I love this movie. And it'll always be the greatest theater experience of my life, because we drove like an hour to go watch it, and then I remember seeing a plastic bag in the middle of the road and almost about shat myself.
Oh, I was going to say it was the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and
it felt like a ghost. Like I was so traumatized from Paranormal Activity that a plastic bag just sitting in the road has like always lingered in my head afterwards, and I don't. It's just like yeah. The veil was lit. The veil in my life was completely thin at that point. I was for that entire month. So yeah, no, I love that whole franchise. And
yeah, I love the Paranormal Activity franchise also. I have a weird connection to Blair Witch Project that I'll share with you guys, even though I like Paranormal Activity more. Jade, you don't know this. My family are gypsies, the palm reading people. And our shop was right next to the Newark Theater, which was the only theater in America at the time to play Blair Witch Project.
Oh, no way.
There was always big lines, and all of my cousins saw it and thought it was real. So we're at a barbecue one night, and I go, yeah, the directors and the actors were outside of our place yesterday. And they were all like, what? Directors and actors? They thought it was real. But Paranormal Activity, I like more because not many of us go out into the woods to shoot documentaries, but all of us live in a house or an apartment, So that was more real and scary to me. And with Next of Kin, the only sin that movie committed was having the Paranormal Activity name put on it. If it was just Next of Kin and it was, released onto Paramount Plus, it wouldn't have got any hate at all. It would have just been a run-of-the-mill found footage movie.
Yeah. I like to call Paranormal Activity like the Where's Waldo's Playhouse of Terror, because it's like when you watch that franchise, that's what you're doing. You're just constantly being observant like never before. Like it's about when Paranormal Activity is at its prime is when it's just a stationary shot.
Yes.
And you're just spending your time focusing in on the shot and where the horror is going to come from. Is it going to come from the adjacent door? Is it going to come from under the bed? Is it going to come from the kitchen or this moving fan? Or is it going to come from the Connect, like the Xbox Connect system? Like I just think that the Paranormal Activity franchise finds simplistic ways. And while the scare tactics are nothing we've never seen before, they're just always so damn creative and effective. And I worship at the altar of this franchise, and I could literally give TED Talks about like why found footage is just so brilliant. And honestly, when you mentioned about taking the Paranormal Activity tag off, that's honestly what I would feel like, how people would feel about Exorcist Believer if they just called it The Believer and they took away all of its connections to the 1973 original film, which would only be like 10 minutes of the movie. It would go down in a lot of people's throats a lot easier, and a lot like if they just call it like Next of Kin or Exorcist Believer, The Believer, like it would just go down in a lot of people's mind a lot smoother.
So my number 2, now I am way older than you guys. I know where I was October 21st, 1988, because I was a little kid and my family, because this was the 80s, took me to see Halloween 4. And I left that movie with one thought on my mind. One day, I am going to marry that girl. and I'm going to make horror movies. Well, sadly, Danielle Harris, I did not marry her, sadly, but I did go on to do One Out of Two Ain't Bad. I love Halloween 4 so much because it's the first Halloween movie, other than Season of the Witch, which I do like a lot, that felt like Halloween. Let's be honest, Halloween 1 and 2, great movies. We are all here because of those movies. That doesn't happen. Scream doesn't happen, Jake. And we're not buddies talking right now because Scream 5 doesn't come out. But those movies could take place any other night of the year. Yeah, Halloween was the sriracha sauce that made those movies even better, but that could have happened on Arbor Day, and it still would have been good. But those opening minutes of Halloween 4, those shots, you feel you could be watching that movie during the middle of summer when it's 100 degrees outside and you're chilly. You're like, man, I live in Malibu, but how did I get into the Midwest?
No, I totally agree. Halloween 4, I think, is so good and so different from the other movies. And I think it gets this bad rap because people just look at what the mask looks like and they're like, oh, it's that one. No, it's like really terrifying. I think it did what Halloween Kills did. I enjoy, but I think Halloween 4 does it maybe even better by getting like the whole town together to go against Michael. I don't know, man. I really like this movie. It's really underrated. Look past the mask, look, the eyebrows are weird, but just look past that. I swear it's a good Halloween movie. And I couldn't agree more with the opening where, the original John Carpenter movie is like, oh, it's got this crazy score and, it's kind of getting you into the vibe and it's getting you hyped. The beginning of Halloween 4, yeah, it chills you to your core. It's just like, oh, this is going to be scary again. We're not doing the sci-fi horror thing we did in the last entry. We're getting back to Michael Myers.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with all that. I love the opening to Halloween 4, and it makes you really feel like it's the Halloween season, and which is another great thing I like about the David Gordon Green Halloween movies is they make sure that like this is taking place on Halloween. The streets are filled with jack-o'-lanterns. People are actually in costumes. They made sure that the budget went to maybe not so much to the mask, but I also agree that like look past the mask. It also has a actually scary ending, like that final shot in Halloween 4 with Jamie and how it mirrors the original in a lot of ways. It's brilliant. It's such a great movie. And I do agree. Like I'm a big Halloween Kills defender. I think that movie is just pure fun and it's a bona fide slasher. Like I like Evil Dies the Night. Yeah, it's silly, but honey, in 10 years, people are gonna like, let's throw on the Evil Dies the Night installment and have a good time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It doesn't bother me. And I do think the town incorporation in Halloween Kills is being brought in because of Halloween 4. And I think that yeah. And I loved. Yeah. So Halloween 4 is one of my personal favorites of the entire franchise. Yeah. The mask is trash, but the vibes are all.
You have to understand, Michael Myers is dead, Mom. No, Michael Myers happened in this universe, so there's going to be imitations of the mask he wore. So not all of them are going to be top quality Spirit Halloween stuff. This is an East Coast drugstore, which, as if you know, East Coast drugstores are really weird, the stuff that they have in them. So it's not going to be a top quality mask. So that's the way I defend it. And one thing I wanted to ask you guys while talking about the mask, in Halloween 2018, when Michael's doing that tracking shot, which I'll make a joke later, how cool would it have been if someone would have shouted, "Hey, asshole, that mask is illegal in this town"? You would think someone would have mentioned that he's dressed up like the guy who killed all those people a few years ago.
Well, it was like 40 years ago, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
but
that's the people that I've forgotten. Yeah.
But I see what you're saying though. Like it's like, wow, like dude, that's really offensive. Just one line of that or something. They kind of touched on that in Scream 6 a little bit, which I thought was kind of cool. Like it's like, oh, the mask like means more than just this. It goes beyond just this is a mask you can buy at the store now. Like it means something now. So I think Halloween, the David Gordon Green ones touches on that a little bit, but I don't know. Personally, I've really appreciated how the new Scream films have done that. Just a little more, personally.
Yeah, one other thing before I ask you your well, you explain Terrifier 2 to us again, Jake. With Halloween, you get to see this trilogy, the ugliness of fans, especially with ends, how mean people got. But then it's like those same people that hate ends because of Corey Cunningham were also, well, Halloween Kills was just Michael killing people, but then they hated Halloween Ends because it wasn't just Michael killing people. And there's this one, sometimes I like to watch people's bad opinions just to feel better about myself. One guy went on this rant when Halloween Ends complaining that, oh, and at the end they had to do female empowerment. And I was like, wait. Forget gender politics and all that. Have you ever seen a slasher movie?
Yeah,
It's
right.
always a female empowerment.
Like, are they watching like Halloween 1978 and they're like, this is no, oh yeah, no, this is all about men. This is clearly all about dudes being bros. No, like what? Slashers and horror especially has always been, and listen, people hate people like use this word all the time, and I think it is just so dumb. Horror has always been what people like to say woke. I hate that word so much because it doesn't mean anything. Like it literally just means I hate this movie, so it's woke.
Yeah.
Listen, Black Christmas, a movie that came out in 1974, is one of the most feminist movies I have ever seen, and I love it. It is so good. And it came out in 1974. People want to say modern horror is like, oh, it's all, it's trying to virtue signaling and all that. And I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like, come on. Like, horror has always been empowering to many different groups of people, and that's what I love about it so much. So for that reason, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you if that's your opinion.
I feel like people have lost the definition of what woke even means these days, and it's become this whole new like terminology with it. And horror can be extremely, what's the word, glorifying, like maybe especially to like female bodies, maybe not in the best ways at time, but and I love that like even that now is beginning like a little bit of a twist. There's been a lot of male nudity that's been kind of coming out in movies that's been kind of glorified, so it's kind of like, yes, release the dicks. And I agree, it's almost like every now and then it's like when I hear that complaint about Halloween Ends, which I get it. I totally get when people like when Halloween Ends came out and people were like completely bashing it. I was like, as a Halloween Ends defender, it's like I cannot not disagree with what you're saying because it is, shocking. But when people like to throw out titles like, "Oh, Halloween Ends is just woke," I'm like, sit down, child, sit down. Read a dictionary. I think you've lost what the term woke means. But yeah.
2 horror franchises where a guy is the main thing, and one of them is Evil Dead, and Ash is an idiot who stumbles into doing things good. And the other is, let's be honest, Friday the 13th, the main guy. It's not there's Final Girls, but Tommy Jarvis, by the way, Never Hike Alone 2 was awesome last night. But yeah, so Jake, explain why Terrifier 2 is your favorite movie to watch during Halloween.
I mean, like, going back to the whole conversation of a horror film trying to capture the vibe of October, I just think this movie does it so well. Like, listen, I think the original Halloween and like Trick or Treat, like these will always be the best at that. But Terrifier 2 for a modern movie does it maybe just as well. Like you have these it's little tiny things too about the movie too. You have the scene where, Sienna is running around the carnival and all that, and there's these leaves are blowing in the wind and like this slow panning shot. And it's little tiny details like that sounds so insignificant, but it flavors the movie and gives it this certain kind of tone that I feel like has been lost in a lot of horror films. Like so many modern movies, and I'm not trashing on modern horror because there is a lot of really good movies still coming out today. But I do feel like a lot of the more popular ones kind of lose the idea of setting up an atmosphere and getting you lost in that so that the horror can hit a little harder. And Terrifier 2 does that so well. So many people look at this and they're like, it's just mindless gore. And I'm like, we're watching two different movies then.
Yeah.
Because like there's so much to be said about the atmosphere, the style, the way the shots look and stuff. It all just feels so 80s, like so unapologetically 80s in the best way. And I love this movie for that reason. If you want a fall horror movie, it's a little more brutal than your typical slasher or whatever, Terrifier 2 is like the number one. Yes, go watch this film.
Yeah. Also, speaking of the unapologetically gory, to those folks, I'm like, who cares? Who cares? It's like, you're boring. That's like, you're boring. Like, who cares? Like, he literally sawed them in half, or like, I'm sorry, like that bedroom kill lives in my head rent free in that movie. I'm telling you, watching that in a theater, and then when Art the Clown leaves, there was a sigh of relief. But then when he comes back into the room and he comes with the salt, I'm telling you, I've never felt more defeated in my life. Like I was like, oh, please, I cannot. That is like one of the greatest kills I've ever witnessed in cinema history, because, and it's just the director just already digging, like he already knows that, like he's just like he's a full-on jackass. Like, yeah, I can make this movie 80 minutes, but I'm just gonna pad on because I'm gonna have a 20-minute kill in the middle of the movie, and just like, yeah, like, who cares? Like, it's awesome. Like, Terrifier is so awesome.
I feel like people who like don't like how long the movie is, like can't appreciate that side to it though, where it's like, this is like, we're supposed to be having fun with this. Like this sequence is this scene isn't so long because it's like, oh, this serves the narrative or something. No, we're having fun with this kid. Like we're in Art the Clown's like gigantic clown shoes right now, having a fucking blast with him. He runs into that room with a smile on his face. He is so happy about what he's doing. And then when the mom comes in, he's just like, did I do that? Like, that's so funny. That's hilarious. Like, what? I can't imagine. Like, I just feel like, I don't know. Like, listen, I don't shit on people for their differing movie opinions, but I just feel like you're a bit of a wet blanket if that's your complaint about this movie. It's like, oh, it's 2 hours. Like, why it doesn't need to be 2 hours? Like, what? And I'm like, but it's so much fun because of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, the fact that it's 2 hours, but you got to think the things that go long are that kill, which that to me is, if you're in a relationship with someone and you want to know where it's going to go, see how they react to that scene. Because it's like, if they walk away, then, it's not meant to be. But if they at least sit through it, put a ring on it, guys. Put a ring on it.
Oh,
it is the scene that's talked about most. Like the first one, the sawing in half, that's kind of G-rated compared to that scene.
It's crazy to think that like that they were able to top the sawing in half from the first film, which was where the entire budget went for that first movie, went into that one scene. But yeah, and I cannot wait to see what they're gonna do with Terrifier 3. They're already talking about like trying to make it a little bit more scary, go back to its All Hallows Eve where it like entrance type of vibe, and I'm like, hey, you sold me with Terrifier 2. Like I'm all in. Whatever you say, it could be a musical, and I'd be like, yeah, give it to me. Like I just need more Art the Clown. It was oh my god, it's a Halloween staple for sure. Like we say movies are Halloween staples sometimes, and then we over 5 years we don't actually return to them like we say we will. But like, no, Terrifier 2 is already like, but that is a true Halloween staple.
Well, Dylan, you're gonna give your number one, but I'm gonna try to guess it.
Okay, give it a go.
Is it Season of the Witch?
Yes, it is, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, hell yeah.
Season of the Witch. This to me oozes Halloween. It oozes everything about it, down to the score, to the aesthetic, to everything being like anytime I go and I'm just going to buy Halloween costumes, or I'm planning my Halloween costume, I've got Silver Shamrock in the back of my head constantly. Tom Atkins' character in this, I am so thrilled we have a lead character who's such a sleazeball, an asshole. And those are the people I want to follow in horror movies. Why does everybody have to be this sort of stoic final girl like type of person? Let's have the assholes have their moment. And like Tom Hackins is like, I just want to like have sex with women and cheat around, but also I'm also the hero of this story at the end of the day, trying to save Halloween and save these kids, and the cult vibes to it all. Just this to me is it's an incredible horror film. I grew up because I got into horror like a little late-ish compared, like some people always grew up watching horror. I grew up in a house divided of horror. So like mother didn't like horror, father loved horror. I grew up in the Bible Belt, you say HE double hockey stick. If you said hell, you were going there. So like for me, when I sat down and I was finally watching all these horror movies, I was always told Halloween 3 was a stain. It was the stain of the franchise. And like my father, who is no history of liking bizarre film, like he's a unapologetic praiser of Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows.
I love that movie.
Yeah, so like my father has always been like, he's like, look, I'm gonna go in and spoil it. He's not in the movie. He's just not in the movie. And I'm gonna go and spoil it for you. So now that you know, just watch it as a movie. And I watched it as a movie and I was like, this is effective. This is an effective movie. It's got great kills. And I mean, also, fuck them children. I love it when a kid movie is not like, I don't know what it is about kids in America, but killing a kid in America is so taboo. But they'll do it overseas, and I love that kids are dying in this movie. Like just the vibes of this movie I love Halloween. Yes, it's probably the best of the Halloween franchise, but Halloween 3 is a Halloween. It's a season movie to me. It has to be watched on Halloween night. And it has one of the best scores I've ever heard in my life. Yes. So yeah.
Great pick. Jake, I can tell by your reactions. How do you feel about Season of the Witch?
Oh my God. I just love this movie. Like, I love everything about this movie. I couldn't agree more with what Dillon had to say about it. I discovered the Halloween franchise later in life. Like I remember in 2018, like the new one was coming out. There's a lot of buzz about it. People were all excited. And I'd seen Hereditary. I believe it was over the summer. And I was like kind of getting back into horror movies. I'm like, damn, like I really I'd been like super into Marvel and stuff. Like I was watching like a lot of Marvel movies and stuff. And I'm like, okay, these are good, whatever. Hereditary floored me. And I just started getting a lot more into horror. I was going through a lot of the big slasher movies, and I watched the first Halloween. It blew me away. I saw Halloween 2018. I'm like, this is also fucking awesome. So I'm like, okay, I got to get through this whole franchise now. I sat down, I watched 2, loved it. I got to 3 and I was like, I started it and I'm like, wait, where the fuck is Michael? Like, I genuinely didn't know. Like, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is nothing like the last 3 movies I just watched. And I fell in love with it. I'm like, this is just an excellent sci-fi horror movie that like, it's so campy and weird, but in all the right ways. I love Tom Atkins in the lead. He's so good in everything I've seen him in. And this might be one of my favorites of his whole catalog of starring movies. And I don't know. I fell in love with it immediately. And I'm like, oh my God, what else does this franchise have to offer if this is the 3rd entry? Yeah. I mean, kind of just the rest of it is very Michael focused, but that was so, I don't know, like culture shock to me. I was just like, what? Like, this is so bizarre to do that in entry number 3, but I loved it all the while. I don't know. I hear so many people whose like immediate reaction to the film was, well, Michael wasn't in it. And I'm like, I feel like that's just so weird to me because my experience was very similar to maybe how people saw it like back in the 80s when it came out. It was like I was expecting Michael, but that's not what it was at all. But I still loved it. And I think it's so good as a standalone. If you watch it as a Halloween movie, you're missing out because there's something really special underneath this with the aesthetic, with the constant repetition of the song throughout the whole thing. It's almost like a motif. And I love that. It's a little annoying, but it's fucking hilarious at the same time. This is a movie that isn't afraid to be scary, gross, silly, fun. I don't know. It elicits a lot of emotions, and I couldn't agree more with this being a number 1 choice for you, man. Like it's a great movie. It's so good. It's so underrated.
And it's just also great like conversation starter too, just around the Halloween season as well. Like one of my all-time favorite shows is The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. It's a Shudder thing. And like as if anyone who watches that show knows this is always like a back burner conversation in the community. Is Halloween 3 ever gonna play? Is like when is like and because like one person loves it, the other person hates it. And I love the life that this movie now has within the horror community as well. So anytime that I feel like I'm sitting down to watch it, I'm also bringing all the attributes now that the life that this movie has now taken, because we're all now socially online, which is just, it's also unique because, like, imagine watching this movie in the 80s. You don't have like the social media world that you have now. So everybody is sitting down to watch this movie and then like learning, and then you don't find out through just random human interactions, but now you can know what everyone's thinking in a matter of minutes. So it is nice that in a way to see that like collectively people have now like turned back on this movie and like are now like collectively praising this movie. But it is just the most, to me, perfect movie that just emotes the season of Halloween, and it's also not afraid to get scary. And because Michael's not in it, there's this unpredictability of where this movie's going to lead you, because you're like, where the hell is Michael? I have no idea, because everyone's being as being rused throughout this film because there's no Michael. And it just has that final moment where he's screaming at the damn phone. That's why I don't want a sequel ever, because the ambiguity of it all. I mean, obviously I like to say fuck them kids, so that the show went on, in my humble opinion.
It doesn't need a continuation at all. Like, it is perfect right where it is. I don't want to know anymore. Like, I don't want to know what happens, and that's what makes it so great. That's what makes it a conversation piece, and how you could talk about it endlessly. If we get the answer to that, then there's no more conversation. It's the same thing with what's going on with The Strangers right now. Like, The Strangers chapters 1 through 3, like, I'm excited for them, but the director is talking about like, oh, we're going to explain like where the strangers came from and stuff. But doesn't that ruin the ambiguity and the mystery?
It does. And I'm excited for it because I'm a massive fan of The Strangers, and I think Strangers Pray at Night is just a bona fide 80s fun romp. And a part of me was hoping that with the Strangers trilogies, we were going to get Strangers films, but in different like almost decades of horror. Kind of like how like the original was like very like reminiscent of like 70s like home invasion, like kind of felt like a little like Halloween, and then Strangers 2 was like, we're going full 80s. We're doing like the fisheye lens and like all these like little cool like horror effects, and then we're gonna have a bona fide pool sequence that like brought the house down. And then the director is my biggest fear with it. I saw the clip that they released and I did kind of like it, but I am nervous that they're going to backpedal and kind of lose what The Strangers was really all about, and by getting too explanatory and like I hate to be that snob to be like less is more, but with The Strangers, less is actually more. But it's just and The Strangers is one of the scariest movies I ever saw. I saw that too in the early 2000s in the theaters, and it was like, whoa. But yeah.
So my number one, Dillon, tell Jake what my number one is.
Oh, it's Trick or Treat.
Yeah, Trick or Treat. It is the perfect Halloween movie. If you again, like I said with Halloween Tree, opposite ends of the spectrum, but if you got a 13 or 12-year-old kid, niece, nephew, and you want to get them into horror, this is the perfect movie to do it, because it has every age you are when you go through Halloween. We got the little kid Halloween, we got the 20-somethings, the 30, the 40-year-old with the principal, then the old, then we get a Scrooge story thrown in there, and it's perfect. I forgot what I saw in theaters, because this movie was going to get a theatrical release. I remember seeing the trailer in theaters for something. I don't remember the movie. And then they put out the art book and all of that, but no movie. it took like a little over a year for the movie to finally get released, and I loved it. Do you guys ring? There was a channel called Chiller. It was like Shudder,
That
but
thing raised me. I watched
yeah.
so many bad horror movies, but man, that channel
But
raised
you
me.
remember Halloween? They would do 24 hours of trick or
Yeah.
treat, kind of like TBS does with A Christmas Story. And I just love everything about this movie. I have the comic, which has other stories, and you can't, in this, the way it did anthologies differently, instead of one story ending and then the next begins, it's just boom. And then when you go back and watch it and see how everything connects perfectly, I really can't put in words how much I love it. And I know it's a cliche already in the horror, world to say this is your favorite Halloween movie, but there's a reason why it's a cliche. It is perfect. Yeah, yeah, that's my thoughts. Jake, thoughts on Trick or Treat?
Oh, I love this movie so much. I mean, this and the original Halloween, I think, are like these staples, like without a doubt, without question, for for this month. I think you have to watch them at least one time in October. This one is also like one of those rare movies where I feel like we get a horror icon from it that most people don't talk about. But like every Spirit Halloween every year is filled with Sams.
Yes.
Like it's undeniable. It's like Sam is so recognizable, and yet he's only been in one movie. I think that's so fascinating to me. Like this movie and like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, how like these are just these one-off little campy horror movies, but they have made such a big impact. And not too many movies can say that. I love that about Trick or Treat. I love the side stories. That it's an excellent horror film besides how iconic it is as well. All the stories are really well done and interwoven into each other.
Yeah.
I don't know, excellent writing here for an anthology flick. It is without a doubt like a top 10 of all time in terms of like anthology horror. I don't know. I just everything I agree. Everything about this film is perfect for what it's trying to execute. It's surprisingly some of the CGI has held up really well too,
Yeah.
especially like when everyone's transforming into like werewolves and
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh,
That's I mean, I've seen worse. I've seen way worse CGI nowadays than opposed to that scene, which is like, wow, shit. Okay, I don't know. Everything about this movie, even today, I feel like really holds up. It's a really fun, scary little romp, and it has so much going for it. In terms of like just an excellent script, iconic moments, and some really like disgusting little kills.
yeah, Dylan.
I love Trick or Treat. I've always been kind of hit or miss with anthology films because with anthologies, there's this sort of unfortunate stop-start mentality that goes with a lot of anthologies. And it can be sometimes even a clutch for like the VHS franchise. But the way that this one is particularly woven, Halloween is the only thing in that film that is not stopping and starting. So you have this lingering Halloween effect that, and therefore it always keeps this movie pushing forward that I just absolutely love. Yes, Sam is an icon, and this was arguably one of the most anticipated movies I think I've ever experienced in my life because I was early 2000s was also waiting for it, and then it kept getting pushed. And I remember having an iPod Touch. And I remember I was obsessed with Bloody Disgusting. I would screenshot reviews on my phone, and then I would go on the bus where you didn't have cell signal, and I would read those reviews by zooming in so I remember the review from Bloody Disgusting of Trick or Treat, and it put a level of hype that I have to see this movie. And I remember doing it also for Drag Me to Hell. Like 2009 was just an incredible year because that's when this movie finally became accessible for people, was in 2009. It was an incredible year for horror. If you like go back and you like look at it, like, whoa, so many bona fide like films that like just in general came out that year. Like even the remake of Friday 13th, just like you had such a wild palette of films that were coming out that year. As we were getting ready to move into the 2000s where things got a little bit more like bleaker and raw type of, but like Trick or Treat in a way it kind of really does have this sort of just like festive vibe to it, and I love it. And it's fun to ask people what's your favorite segment, because you could get a different answer from every person and it would make sense for that answer. I'd be like, oh yeah, you love the old man story because it's just how scary it is, because that's Sam's big moment, you know. Or you like the werewolf story, you know, or you like the kids because the kids harken back to a classic sort of storytelling, you know. It's just like any sort of story makes sense of why it might be your favorite. And yeah, and I just had the privilege of watching it recently at the local drive-in, and it goes off like a banger every time. And it is, yeah, it's a classic. And I'm unfortunately, you know, it sucks that it took like 10 years for this movie to kind of get its legacy, because it had to do the classic DVD run and television run. But I'm so thrilled that like even those who are not even horror fans somehow know that a direct-to-DVD movie like Trick or Treat, like that's admiring. You know, it's admiring that like I can talk to somebody like my mother who doesn't like horror movies, but she knows Trick or Treat, you know. And that movie never got the life it probably deserved, because it should have opened up in the cinemas. You know, I mean, it's a legendary film, you know, like from the legendary studio. So it's just kind of shocking. You know, I'm always curious about like what went wrong with the marketing and release schedule.
But killing all the kids, that's like the big thing that kept it from getting a theatrical run. Because it's like, you know, you can kill now, killing Georgie in the beginning of it is okay, but back then it's like, wait, you can kill 17 and over 16 and over. It's cool to kill. But if you're just like 14 and below, it's like, yeah, you can't be killing, because everybody hates 16 to 19-year-olds. Everyone, no matter how old you are, you hate them. But 14 and below, they're still lovable and adorable, because, you know, their voice still cracks every now and then. And it's like, oh, look at you. But yeah, and I love that it's the most successful, well, the most I don't know how to put it, but for most movies that only go right to video, they're forgotten. It's like maybe Boondock Saints is like one that has a big fan base, but the director is such a bad person, it's hard to watch the movie. But with Trick or Treat, it was right to video, but you wouldn't know it with all the merchandising. If you were to ask someone, you know, did this get a theatrical run? They would think, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's getting it now. I can't tell. My local cinemas are like now for the past 2 years have been putting Trick or Treat on. And I felt like I finally got to watch it on the big screen last year. And that was just like such a joyous occasion. You know, normally you have to either go to your local Chiller channel, or which RIP Chiller. Or you'd have to go to like local cable or your DVD store, like, or Blockbuster. I mean, I think Blockbuster, we can all vouch, saved a lot of our lives. Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, depending on where your location was.
No, the one in Portland for $3, the last one around, will send you a Blockbuster card for $3. You can have a membership card. I gotta do it. I don't know why I haven't yet. And I can't wait for a sequel, because you can have it take place in any period of time. But like in the comics, there's one that takes place around the Salem witch trial era. Because Halloween is such a vast holiday, you can have one in the 70s. You know, just one little segment. It won't do the connecting like, you know, the original did, but Michael Dougherty could find a way to have all of that connect, like to have the town connect in some way. But yeah, that is why Trick or Treat is my absolute favorite movie to watch this time of year. In fact, when we're done, I'm gonna eat some lunch and watch it with the commentary track. But yeah, guys, this was a ball. Jake, man, it is so crazy how well you fit into this episode. It was like people watching this are probably, man, they must have known each other for years, how similar their taste is and the way their humor bounced off of each other. And Dillon, I'm proud that we behaved ourselves for making fun of each other because
I'm
Jake was here. We didn't
shocked.
want to scare him too much.
I'm shocked that we've somehow managed to get out of this recording mostly unscathed. Normally somebody's fighting another person. But yeah, because I'm shocked. I think this has been our most well behaved
Yeah.
episode. I'm kind of shocked.
Yeah, so I know Dylan, you gotta go watch the Taylor Swift movie another 20 times in theaters. Wait,
Okay, now
this is
now
the
you want to fight.
concert
Now
you
you
went
want to
to.
fight.
This is
Okay.
the concert you went to, right? The LA.
Yeah, I did. I was at the August 9th show, which not to brag or whatnot, but that was the night that she announced the 1989's Taylor version will be coming out on October 27th. Get pre-order
All
now.
the coolness Jake thought of you just went out the window.
Yeah,
You know how there was
what's
Barb?
so funny about me is I have a wild collectiveness of movies. Like, I mean, like I'll watch anything, no
Like,
triggers, no nothing.
stuff.
But when it comes to my music taste, I ain't gonna lie, it's all Taylor Swift. Like, I am the most generic, basic person, and like, not that I think that she's basic, but just because of her popularity and status. Yeah, no, like, yeah, no, I just listen to a lot of Taylor Swift. Yeah, no, that was my life peaked on August 9th when I saw her, doing all that madness. Yeah.
I mentioned this because Jake, you know how Barbenheimer was a big thing? I think they should do that with concert movies. Have the Taylor Swift concert movie play, but then have Slayer or Cannibal Corpse concert movie. Dylan's like, is Cannibal Corpse actually a band? Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
That is a hell of a name. Okay.
But
Oh,
Cannibal-
wait until you hear their song titles, dude. Oh, it gets even worse.
yeah, it's
all right.
But
Yeah.
I sent Dylan this picture that I said describes our friendship. It's a scene from the Taylor Swift video, You Belong With Me. She's holding up the Are You Okay? But the person in the under window is Gerard from My Chemical Romance saying no.
Yep. I've been Taylor Swift for Halloween many times. I mean, I go all so like, yeah, no. It's like I will watch the most deprived films. I mean, I've gone to the cinemas to see some like, I mean, like, yeah, you see Midsommar, but honey, in that collection, I've got copies of a Serbian film. I've got copies of every little I've got I own Guinea Pig. Okay, but let me tell you, when I'm driving down the road, You Belong With Me, honey, baby, yes, yeah, baby. Folklore is my most streamed album. So yeah, I keep people on their toes.
What do you got going on your YouTube day? Because this is going to be going up today. I'm going to eat and then just post it really quick. I know tonight you're doing a live stream. I'll definitely be there for it. But what else do you got going on right now?
So I got a stream going on tonight, and I'm at some point either next week or the week after, I'm interviewing some of the Terrifier people, which I'm really excited about. So I cannot wait to talk to them again. I got to meet a bunch of them at Horror Hound.
Want to pick that up? The name drop that you just did, you want to pick that up?
Oh, was that big? Oh shit. Okay. Everyone's like all excited now. Yeah. I'm talking to producer. I know at least Michael Levy, one of the producers of the film, is coming on. We're going to talk about his new movie Stream. I'm really excited about it. It looks really good. We're going to talk that Terrifier 3 as well. So I'm very hyped for it. It's going to be a really fun little interview. So check that out either next Wednesday or the Wednesday after. I don't know. I had no idea when it's happening, but we're getting something worked out right now. So I'm hyped. It's going to be fun.
Can't wait, man. And again, everybody, please go subscribe to Jake's stuff. He is just so much fun. Like I said, a lot of my comfort videos are Jake's stuff. Like when I'm playing a game and I need something in the background, I'll throw on one of your old live streams just to have it playing. Dylan, what do you got going on, man?
Man, you know me. I'm just on TikTok making thirst traps with my man Jason Voorhees. So that's what I got going on. Okay. I mean, I actually got quite a lot going on. I've got some things going on in the back burners that I'm working on. I've got lots. In fact, even after this, I have got to film some reviews. I've got some deadlines coming up with some screeners that I've got and some screeners that I've got to get through. that I have not watched. But yeah, just ultimately just, you know, enjoying the Halloween season, just constantly trying to fill it with as much Halloween and spooky stuff. I'm probably gonna rewatch Never Hike Alone 2 because I loved it and I want to make my review for it. I want to make sure it is 100% because I've been a backer of Never Hike Alone, Never Hike Alone in the Snow, and then Never Hike Alone 2. I as someone who worships at the altar of Friday 13th, it was my first horror film.
Worship at a lot of altars, Don.
What'd you say?
You worship at a lot of altars.
A lot of altars. Yeah, a lot of altars. I'm a very religious person when it comes a lot of different altars that I go to. But Jason's my husband. I'm a big fan of his work. So I'm gonna go back and you know, I've got a review coming out for Never Hike Alone 2, a review for Dark Harvest, things like that. And just, you know, just live in the Halloween moment. Yeah, you know, this is the greatest time of the year right here. So yeah, but yes, I am gonna go see the Eras tour for the third time. So yeah.
I know there's not a lot of people who watch the YouTube stuff, listen to the Something Something podcast, but we're in the middle of Spooktober. We had some really cool stuff on. We had some people who work at real haunted locations. We had this guy Milton who works at a haunted lighthouse here in New Jersey. It's like a lighthouse that has great spooky stories to it. Some people from the Red Mill in Clinton, New Jersey, there's a lot of great spooky stories to them, and a lot of other real haunted location stuff coming. So if you're into ghost investigations and stuff like that, Something Something podcast has a lot of cool stuff going. Everybody's links will be in the description of this video. And everybody, have a happy and safe Halloween. Oh, wait, I'm trying to stop it.